Hey, how you doing today, Coach Joey?
Good, man. How you been?
Hey, doing great. Always glad to see a familiar face. And glad to have everybody here with us today for this live Facebook Live here with VA Claims Insider, hosted by myself here, veteran coach Brandon Ellison with veteran coach Joey Garza. And before we get this topic, started today, I want to thank you all for being here with us on Wednesday. And, again, we'll get started here about 5 after, but if everyone could sound off and maybe throw in their branch of service, branch of service, how long they served in the comments right here. We'll give you guys some shout outs and then we'll get started about 5 after and go from there. But really, really thank you all for being here today.
It's going to be a great class. We got a lot of fun stuff that we're going to be talking about today, man.
Yeah.
How's the weather been over on your neck of the woods, man?
Oh man, down here in Georgia, it's a little chilly for us. It's about 40 degrees outside, so not too bad. And it's probably pretty warm where you're at up there. You're part of the woods on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm. California, usually, we pay for it with our rent, to make sure that we get the good weather. And, but we're getting a little bit of that cold front. So as you see, got to make it look like it's a little chilly over here, even though it's about 72 in my house.
Sports coat, I love it. But getting some good sound offs here. It looks like Willie's tuning in. He was stationed in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. Hey, how you doing, John? Fort Bragg. Yep, we love our paratroopers. Santos, Navy. Love the Navy. I was Navy myself. I always say I'm a little biased, but no, love everybody.
Yeah, my brother actually got out the Navy last March, so he's a big Navy guy too. So, couldn't pass the Air Force test, but is what it is.
Hey. I live right next to a really big Air Force base, so I'm always hanging out and talking with the Air Force guys and girls.
Yeah.
It looks like we got an Army vet for 14 years, 100% PNT. Congrats on that.
Welcome.
You deserve it. Got Bobby, Army, spent time in Germany. Absolutely. Adam, Army as well. Yeah, glad to have everybody here. We got people from all branches right now. Coast Guard, Navy. I don't think I've seen the Air Force yet, though. Gotta call your people in, Joey.
Hey, man, we're everywhere. We're everywhere. Right now, we're getting our cup of coffee nice and ready. But yeah, man, we've got well over 70 people in the chat right now. I just want to thank everybody for being here today. It's like I said, it's going to be awesome. I love these calls, just getting a moment to speak with yourself, whether you're a veteran or a veteran. It's just exciting to have you all with us today. So, yeah, thank you all. Thank you all. We got some more Air Force coming in from Alaska. All right, I see you.
And just another part right before we get started. Any questions anyone might have, please drop them in the chat right here, and we'll try to get to all the questions that we can. And if we can't get to the question, we will still have all the questions monitored and your question will get answered. So even if we can't get to it in this segment, they will still get answered back to you. But we're about 5 after, so we're going to do just a quick introduction about myself and Coach Joey here. And, a little bit about me. I was a Navy corpsman, so I did 6 years in the Navy, did time with both the Navy and Marine Corps. So kind of got to see both sides of it all. And, again, really enjoyed it. Did a lot of traveling, made a lot of friends. Everyone has their little bit of ups and downs from time to time, but, wouldn't take it back for anything. But grateful to be here. I wish I would have known about VA Claims Insider before I started my VA disability process. I wish I would have. I probably, I wish I would have had a better understanding. But I always say, we don't know what we don't know, and we can learn from that. And that's where, sure, Joey could be a little bit on the same page with that. It's just the wealth of knowledge. You can never be more prepared or educated on this process. But with that, I wish I would have been a member a long time ago. It would have helped so much with this process. But Navy, 6 years, love the Navy, love the Marine Corps, love all branches of service. And I'll pass it back over to Coach Joey.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Like I said, huge respect for the Navy. Brother was in the Navy. We were actually the first two in our family to go into the service. So it was just kind of like it was an honor to do that. I was Air Force, did that 5 years. I was a C-17 crew chief, so I didn't get exactly to enjoy the air conditioning like a lot of my other fellow Air Force members, but it is one of the things that always brought me together and made me feel like I was a part of something was one in the military, just that camaraderie, just all of the different branches. Like no matter what, it's like all of us were, even if we pick and nick at each other, it's like this is something that we're all proud of. And it's like then when you get out, it's like a lot of times we don't really feel that connection anymore. And one of the huge things, like you said, I wish I knew about VA Claims Insider a long time ago. Even though I've been helping veterans for over 8 years now, this is something that I could have never even imagined being a part of. And my benefits, I would have known a lot longer that, hey, I wasn't exactly where I deserved to be at, because when I got out, I was medically discharged. So I served 5 years, but I was medically discharged, and they only discharged me with a 20%, even though I was medically discharged. And if I would have known the process, I would have known that, hey, something's probably not right about that. Maybe you should file a claim or two. And then, time goes by, you start figuring out how the process works. You see a video of Brian Reese out there just being super excited, and you're like, what the hell is this about? Next thing you know, you're signing up, you got a coach, and you're just like, yeah, this is how it should feel. And, now I'm 100% P&T. And a big thing for me was, talking about my mental health was a huge part of this. And over the years, it's like, whether it's affected you one way or another, we all went in the service and came out another. And that was a huge thing that, because I got out and because I felt like I was okay, I didn't feel like I could file any more claims. I didn't feel like I deserved any more. And this is one of those things where it was like, that's just a huge stigma and a huge misconception about what this process is. But I love it. I'm so glad that I came across this. And now I get even the bigger honor of just being able to help my own veterans now, being one of the coaches, being here for a couple years now. And it's amazing seeing everybody sound off in the chat, just knowing that it's like, hey, no matter what, we're never going to be done helping those that really do need somebody to just either listen, educate them on the process. It's like, this is just one gigantic family that I really am just glad to be a part of. And I know you and I got some golf we got to get in, but it's always great, man.
Again, this isn't a fun process to do by yourself. And it's, when you have someone to talk it through and someone who's been through that, your journey to 100%, I know it wasn't fun or easy. My journey to 100% was not fun or easy, but the medical evidence, knowing your symptoms as they apply to you, as it's related to your service or potentially service-connected disabilities or exposures, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. And it's just putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yep.
You get those decision letters, you get all that correspondence. It can sometimes be hard to decipher and read through 15, 30, 80-page letters, things like that. But there's a lot of good information out there. And, there's people out there that do want to help. We're one of them. VA Claims Insider is here. But we're right at that time. So we're going to get the disclaimer out of the way, cover on just one or two more quick things, and then we'll get started here. But so here at VA Claims Insider, we are not accredited agents, VSOs, attorneys, or any other entity recognized by the Department of Veterans Affairs, and we are not affiliated with the VA in any way. VA Claims Insider is an education-based company for disabled veterans exploring eligibility for increased VA disability benefits and who wish to learn more about that process. VA Claims Insider also connects veterans with vetted independent medical professionals in our preferred provider network for medical examinations and independent medical opinions for a wide range of disability conditions. So with that, part of the VA Claims Insider process, strategy, educate, medical evidence, the strategy, what are the claims? What are the conditions? That education, 38 CFR Part 4. Are you trying to connect directly, secondarily? What are the rating criteria? Is it one of the claims that can only be 10% no matter the severity, a handful that go to 100, or a lot that average around 30 or 50%? And then again, medical evidence wins claims. You'll hear that all the time from us. And I think it might be Brian Reese's favorite word, medical
Mhm.
evidence wins claims. And it's one of my favorite words because, you want that backing. You don't want to have to prove you have the condition. You want to show that and then speak to the connection to service and how it impacts you. But, I'll pass it back over to Joey a little bit about, the strategy sessions, claim submissions, some of our live classes, and he'll kind of fill everyone in on how that works.
Of course, man. And a huge part of, being an elite member with VACI is getting that one-on-one coaching, having somebody there that, understands this process, that knows that, hey, sometimes the VA just doesn't get it right. And being able to look at a decision letter and not just say, hey, if you're like myself, you got that decision letter, and if it said unfavorable, you just threw it on the table, continued your day. You didn't know that you could look and see why they denied it. You can't see why they approved it. You can't see all those things, but that's going to be part of the strategy session. So if you've got previous decision letters and you want to know, hey, like what even happened? I just feel like they're not even listening to me. It's like, oh, well, they're clearly laying out everything here. And that's the beauty of decision letters, is understanding how to read those things. But that's all talked in the strategy session. So talking about where you've been, where you are, and where you'd like to go. That's really what this whole thing's about. And if you see yourself, hey, I just really want to get to 50%, how do I do it? It's like, oh, okay, great. Let's get all your documents uploaded. Let's take a look and let's see what's really going on. And then from there, it's like, hey, like maybe 50 is like a good start. And maybe we can build from there. And so that's going to be one of those things where it's like understanding that it's not just believing that you deserve to be at a certain percentage, but knowing that you serve, so you deserve. So it's like our job is to make sure that you're educated on everything and anything that can go on throughout this process. Because like I said, sometimes the VA just doesn't get it right. And sometimes they do. And that's really what this part is about. So understanding, our whole thing is like, we're not here to just, submit a bunch of claims. Just, okay, let's just spray and pray. Let's see what works. I feel like a lot of us have already done that. And when you do that, a lot of times it doesn't necessarily work out the way we want it to. So that's where that SEM method really comes into play, that strategy, education, and medical evidence. How can you actually get to the rating you deserve as efficiently and effectively as possible? That's what this whole thing's about, because that's what you deserve. Of course, we've got our live classes via Zoom. We appreciate you being here today, but we do offer the live classes. They're 3 times a day. We've got coffee with the coaches. We've got the mental health exam prep, huge class that, like I said, mental health was a big reason why I got to 100%. I am, like I said, 100% rated for PTSD alone, but my overall percentage is like 360, but you don't get extra credit in this game. And then that medical exam education class too. But yeah, so, if you're really starting to contemplate like, man, like this all sounds great, book a discovery call. If you just want to learn more about it, schedule a discovery call, talk to one of our team members about, by going to vaclaims.help. That is going to be a huge resource with just getting to know a little bit more about what's going on, because I'm a huge believer of closed mouths don't get fed. And if you just want to talk, if you just want to see what's going on, it doesn't hurt to talk to somebody, an education professional, one of us that just, we want to help. I want to educate. I want you to see that, hey, you're not where you deserve to be. You deserve so much more, because I was in that belief that I didn't deserve more. And so let's do this together. So reach out to our organization at vaclaimsinsider.com. We'd love to partner with you on your VA claims journey. And like I said, like Brandon said, like Brian Reese says, you serve, so you deserve. So now we're going to get into our topic for today. Go ahead, Brandon.
All right. So we're all in 2025. Glad to be here. I hope it's good to everybody. But with that being said, the VA is trying to rule out some new potential changes to some VA claims that could potentially impact some of us for the better, maybe not so much. But again, it's all about what they're looking to do. And none of these changes we talk about have gone into effect right now. These are proposed, so we're still waiting to see what the VA wants to do with that. So the big three we'll cover down for 2025 is how the VA is looking to make changes to the mental health ratings, the sleep apnea, and tinnitus. So those big three right there. And when you're looking at that, really looking at into like how this stuff gets structured and how all this gets rated, for a mental health claim as it stands, is, you can only be service connected for one VA mental health condition. They get rated under the VA's 31 mental health symptoms. And as it stands right now, more so based under occupational and social impairment. So with that mental health, how we've been impacted since service due to our disabilities or things that happen, how is it impacted in the workforce? How has it impacted our relationships with others? How have we been doing with that? But the thing as it stands right now with work, family, that's more subjective. They're not going to go to our place of work and ask if this really happened. They're not going to call our family or friends and ask if this really happened. That's that vulnerability topic as of right now with these claims, to really express the work, the family, how that's been impacting us since, to help support the rating, compensation for mental health. Well, how the changes coming in now, the VA is going to try to focus more, not so much on the more subjective things like the work, the family, but more so focus on those symptoms as the symptoms apply to you, depression, anxiety, sleep impairment, anger, all of that, more towards the symptoms. So that way it's a more objective representation of yourself. So that way, hopefully we look at this as more of a hopefully positive, beneficial thing to help veterans more so express how they're doing personally, opposed to how that's impacting work, family, friends, things like that. How long I haven't been working or I have been, the relationships. Those are still important topics, but it's more so focusing in on yourself and how you're feeling, how you're doing. So when you think about that, if maybe we are service connected for mental health now, maybe we're not, we're going that journey again. Right now, it's still really based on the occupational social impairment, that work, family, the hardships, finding, maintaining employment, relationships that might not be as good as they could be for whatever reason. Those are important topics. But if the rating changes do come, those are still important things, but it's more so focusing in on yourself and how you're doing. This is more about you, which I tell people, who better to talk about what you're going through but yourself? I wouldn't want anyone to talk on my behalf on this. I would want to do it. And that's that level of vulnerability. But with those, still no changes have come yet. It's all yet to come, but really focusing more on yourself now. And we'll get more into that, but I can pass it back over to Joey and he can tell you guys a little bit about what's proposed to happen with the sleep apnea changes if those go through.
Of course. Thank you, man. The VA is proposing stricter VA rating criteria for sleep apnea. So a little bit on the opposite side from what Ryan is talking about, how, that's going to be a potential great change that's going to be going there with sleep apnea. With veterans using the sleep apnea machine may only receive 10% rating instead of the current 50%, marking a substantial decrease in compensation for many veterans with service-connected sleep apnea. So that's one of those things where you really want to, if you're not service-connected with sleep apnea, if you don't have any primary conditions, this is going to be a huge wake-up call to get the process started. Because like Brandon has said before, and these changes are just proposed right now. We're still waiting for effective dates. We're still waiting for the official times to come out. So get started on this process. Now, if you don't have a current condition that's rated, just submitting for sleep apnea, that might not be the direction you need to go, because the whole process too is not receiving unnecessary denials. So if you're unsure about, hey, can I do it now? Can I do it later? Where am I at in this process? Get back on that discovery call with one of us. Just start getting in the know of where you are in your claims process. Because like I said, that change from 50 to 10%, that's a huge decrease. And then, of course, the changes that are going to be going on with the tinnitus. They're actually going to be eliminating the standalone tinnitus rating. And that means the VA will no longer assign a separate 10% rating for tinnitus. Instead, tinnitus will only be rated and associated with another compensable condition, potentially reducing benefits for veterans with tinnitus. as a primary claim for direct service connection. So if you've got that tinnitus, you're going to need that hearing loss claim too, or another one of those compensable conditions that align with the tinnitus condition. So that's just one of those things where it's like, man, like if you haven't started this process, right now is a huge time for you to get started, because some of those conditions, whether it's mental health, whether it's sleep apnea, whether it's tinnitus, whether it's any conditions at all that you just haven't even started yet, get on the phone with us. Love to have a conversation with y'all.
Absolutely. And a little bit on like the tinnitus topic more with that too is, tinnitus used to be more of it could be a gateway for a good amount of veterans, for that tinnitus, really that stepping stone to help build off of other claims. And, as of right now, again, no change has been made. If you win a tinnitus claim, it's 10%, but, secondaries, things like that. But like how Joey was saying, it won't be a standalone claim anymore like it currently is. Right now, you could be service connected with tinnitus by itself, hearing loss, anything else under the sun. But now they're trying to link that tinnitus into another condition, more so probably closer to hearing loss. But like good example is, let's say you file the claim, you get 0% for hearing loss. If you get 0% for hearing loss, but the VA deems you do have tinnitus, they give you a 10% rating for tinnitus, the 0% hearing loss. But if that hearing loss was over 10%, then you would not get a compensatable amount for that tinnitus. So that's where right now you can get tinnitus 10% by itself. Other claims as well, you get hearing loss as well. But if that hearing loss, if the changes go through, is over 10% and you do have tinnitus, you won't get a rateable 10% anymore for that. They'll just go off the hearing loss or the other condition that's linked to that tinnitus. So that's where it can be, we can all have a little bit of our feelings on that, but none of it's changed. And like Joey said too, like we're saying, if you're already service connected with mental health right now or sleep apnea or tinnitus, then again, you're grandfathered in. No one's going to touch that. No one's going to take it away from you. You don't got to worry about that. And again, don't always look at it as a bad thing. It's just, we're all military members right here, take a tactical pause, regroup, see what you need, what you have, how to go about it. But these are definitely things to keep a lookout for, especially out of these. We're really hoping that the mental health side of it could be beneficial to a lot more veterans. Just under the fact that, speaking to yourself, speaking to what you're going through. Like a good example is for like right now, mental health, to get like 100% mental health rating for a certain condition, they're looking for mental health 100%. Like how long have you not been working? How hard has it been to maintain that job and do that? And that plays a big factor into helping you get that 100% occupational total impairment rating. But with this new criteria, it won't have as much to do with that. You could still be working as much as you want, and that's not going to play a factor into that rating. If maybe you do go to 100, it would be more so speaking to how you're doing and trying to be our best to be vulnerable and not minimize those symptoms. So that's where we hope mental health could help further veterans along this process. The sleep apnea one, if that's something you're really thinking about getting into, and you're not too sure, please, reach out to us here at VA Claims Insider, look into that. You might want to get started on that process a little sooner than later, just before any proposed changes happen. Because again, as of right now, if you're diagnosed with sleep apnea, you have that CPAP machine, you have the connection to service one way or the other, you win. That's a 50% rating. Again, now they're trying to make it, if the changes go through, if you're diagnosed with sleep apnea, you have that CPAP machine, everything's fine that way. Then instead of a guaranteed 50 like it is now, they're more than likely to rate you at 10%. So that is a really big jump right there. So if sleep apnea is something you're interested in, haven't followed up with your doctor on that or looked into that or talked to anyone, that would be a claim I would be looking at. And tinnitus. You definitely, if you have that ringing in the ears, started in service, you still have it, that would be a claim I would jump all over, if it applies to you, just so that way you get grandfathered in, lock that in. You don't want anyone taking that away. But a lot of good things to look out for on this. But again, nothing's changed right now. Everyone's grandfathered in. But Joe, do you want to talk a little bit about that 60-day window?
Yeah. So before I hop into that, just I see a couple questions on the sleep apnea in the chat. So I want to just kind of address some of those and kind of reiterate some of the things. If you are currently at 50%, you are grandfathered into that process. So that's one of those claims where you don't want to just go submitting increases for conditions, especially if understanding the rating criteria. 50 is all they're offering right now for the sleep apnea. And that's that guaranteed for that having a CPAP machine. So you're not going to get just a reduction just for them making these changes. This has happened to so many other conditions before where they either increase them, decrease the overall compensation for them. But if you are already service connected with the condition at that rating, you do not have to worry about it. You just don't want to file new claims on that condition. So you don't want to say, hey, I'm at 50%, but I heard my buddy got 100% for sleep apnea. I'm going to file an increase. Well, under that new rating structure, you might be putting that 50% at risk. So just make sure that you understand what you're doing in this process. And if you don't, once again, get on that discovery call, get on a strategy call with one of your coaches, and then they can make sure that you're educated on the process and how it works. So yeah, sleep apnea has been a heavily debated topic from the VA, and the 2025 rating updates represents a significant step backwards for veterans suffering from this condition. And this is huge because, like myself, I deal with sleep apnea as well. And it's just, it feels like a blow to the chest when they do these things, because I know how much it impacts the quality of my life. And now you're telling me that this condition is only worth 10%. And it's like, I view that from a standpoint of knowing that, hey, I'm already at 50. But if they were to say tomorrow that that's getting changed to 10%, it's tough. So once again, get in there. So yeah, under the new VA rating criteria for the sleep apnea, veterans will face a much stricter guideline for qualifying for the disability ratings related to sleep apnea. And just in my opinion, overall, it's just going to get much lower ratings in the future. So that's really why you want to get in there, understand this process. And I see these questions going off in chat. So you're in the right space. You're already ahead of the game. You're getting ahead of it because these are all proposed changes. Some of these changes were even supposed to come out last year, and we're talking about them this year. So it's just make sure that you're a step ahead of the game. Understand why it's bad. Some of these changes are bad for veterans. That stricter qualifying and rating criteria. That CPAP machine, is going to only get that 10%, whether when it used to be 50%, and that's terrible. So yeah, that impact on your overall compensation will get impacted in the future. So if you're like, man, that used to get 50%, but now it only gets 10% under the new rating structure when they roll it out. And usually they give a little gap period. So if it's not already in that process of being submitted, make sure that you're going in there, having all the right education, the right medical evidence. Medical evidence wins claims in this. Don't just go, hey, I got a diagnosis for a sleep apnea machine. I'm good for submitting for sleep apnea. It's not exactly how the process works. And once again, you just want to avoid unnecessary denials. So, this is going to also lead to a lot of veterans not really wanting to seek that diagnosis. With the tougher criteria, may discourage veterans from seeking a diagnosis of treatment for sleep apnea, knowing that their chances of receiving adequate compensation is lower. And that's right there, especially when I've been the frustrated veteran. When you see something like that or hear something like that, where it's just like, man, like, what's the use? I mean, I can only get 10%. That's not going to help me get to the rating I deserve. You might be right, but it also might be one of those conditions that sets you up for claims that are even higher. Maybe that's something that you already got service connected and you're only sitting at that 10% because you only have sleep apnea and it's under the new rating structure. Well, maybe there's other claims that can go as secondaries to that. So if you're not sure about that process, anything like there, get on the phone. Overall, I just think these proposed changes for the sleep apnea are just overall just not that great for veterans. The 50% rating with the sleep app is is by far the most common rating right now. And under the new rating criteria, I believe a veteran using a sleep app machine will likely only get that 10%. So that reduction is just significantly going to decrease the compensation. that many veterans rely on. So making it more difficult for them to get the benefits they deserve. And I know I kind of just bounce back and forth with going back into that sleep apnea. It's just one of those things where you're going to find that a lot of our coaches at VACI, there's a reason why we love what we do. And there's a reason why I feel so passionate about, even if it's just the conditions that I'm rated for, because a lot of them are the big ones. Headaches, I got TBI, I got mental health, PTSD, all these other conditions. But it's like, these are what so many veterans struggle with every single day. And unfortunately, a lot of them don't even know that they can be sitting in this call today. A lot of them don't even know that they can go get treated for that today. Or maybe it's a potential secondary condition. Maybe they have a direct service connection to service. Whatever it is, I'm happy you all are here. And that's my TED Talk.
Again, speaking from the heart, again, I'm service connected with sleep apnea myself. And to see them propose this decreased change, I'm like, that's hard. That doesn't sit right. Because again, that's where I strongly believe no one joins the military and leaves the same person. I don't mean that in a bad way. I wouldn't take my service back for anything. But these adjustments can be hard and they can be difficult. But stay in the fight. And I'm seeing some comments in the chat, which they're good. They're good comments, good questions, where it talks about, how do I get service connected with sleep apnea? They're getting denied. That's where it goes back into medical evidence. What did you have with the claim? If we weren't diagnosed with sleep apnea on active duty, then you got to have a service connected disability now that could cause it. And then with that secondary condition, you need a medical nexus letter. You need that independent medical opinion to help support how the sleep apnea now is linked to your service. Just because the VA diagnoses us with sleep apnea does not mean it's going to get service connected. I had that happen to me. I got diagnosed when I thought the VA said I had a condition. I thought I had a VA claim. And then that's where I found out, no, the VA, they're there to take care of our healthcare needs, not help us with the compensation benefits. If we need that connection, then we got to find the private providers that can do so. And that is where, if you're interested, VA Claims Insider does have the preferred provider network that can help with those nexus letters, maybe for sleep apnea, maybe for mental health, something to help start that connection. But that's where medical evidence, the nexus connection, again, if you weren't diagnosed on active duty, it's not going to go through, more than likely directly linked to service. You got to do that secondary. And then I saw a couple more questions too, a lot of questions about mental health, how to go for those increases. I'm at this rating, I'm at that rating. And when you're looking at mental health, again, you can only be service connected for one mental health condition for service connected purposes. We can be diagnosed with a bunch of different things, but for the compensation VA, only one, because they all get evaluated under the same symptoms. So with that, ratings from 0, 10, 30, 50, 70, and 100. That's how mental health is factored in. If you're thinking about going for an increase on any of those, you want to review those symptoms. You want to make sure those symptoms that apply to you, you want to have the evidence backing it up. We highly advise away from just filing the increase without the medical evidence backing it. Maybe that is another nexus letter, independent medical opinion. Maybe it is the year's worth of mental health treatment we've had from our private providers or VA doctors. You want to have that evidence and you want to be familiar with those symptoms. And again, if you have questions on how to get more familiar with those symptoms, or maybe the education process of going about that exam, that's what we're here for with VA Claims Insider. Sign up with us, get with myself, get with Coach Joey. But that's where these are all really good claims. It's just, it's a process. No one should care more about this than the veteran themselves. I can promise you no one cared more about my claims than me. When I called the VA, when I filed, when I told people about them, it's just, you got to go out there and get that evidence. I know going to the doctor for these things can feel like a second job sometimes, but if you deserve it, go for it. I went to the appointments. I had to do what I want to do, even when I didn't want to. You have the ups and downs, but don't give up. Be that squeaky wheel. You deserve it. But mental health, be familiar with the symptoms, know the evidence you have. Sleep apnea, again, make sure you're diagnosed first. Make sure, maybe you have the CPAP or equipment with it. If you weren't diagnosed on active duty with the sleep apnea, it's extremely hard to get service connected. Diagnosed after the service, look at your disabilities. You see people that try to file sleep apnea secondary to their tinnitus. The VA is not going to link that. You got to look for things maybe like mental health, maybe like sinusitis, rhinitis, things that can cause upper airway obstructions, things that impact our sleep. You want to have that good connection to sleep apnea, but you also would want that independent medical opinion that links it for us. But I mean, great questions.
Yeah. And a big thing too is I'm also seeing a couple questions about, kind of when these changes do actually get rolled out. And I know that you mentioned the 60-day, the 60-day grace period where it's just, or that cooling off period. They give that moment when these changes, because they're such a huge change, there's that 60-day cooling off period. That's going to come off before the rating changes actually go into effect. So if it's, say, got announced February 1st, they would give you that 60 days to get into that process. So making sure that you've got the proper medical evidence. If you haven't been treated for diagnosis or, diagnosed with sleep apnea, or haven't been seen for mental health, or haven't got an IMO or a nexus letter, or don't even know what those are, don't hesitate to, reach out to us. Once again, vaclaimsinsider.com. Get on there, book a discovery call, because once again, these changes are not always going to be, there for long, when it's like these old rating structures that are right now offering you, if you know that you're dealing with that ring in the ear, get on a call. If you know that you're dealing with sleep apnea but have no idea how to connect it, get on a call. If you know that your mental health, if you have a rating for it or you haven't submitted for it, get on a call. Those conditions alone can take you from nothing to being one of the higher percentages just in those three. And mental health alone is one of those conditions that rates at 100% by itself. So if you're like me and, hey, it got tough sometimes, and you haven't got to that position of talking about it with anyone, or you have, and you're just not at the rating you deserve, get on the phone, because maybe Telemedica, the preferred provider network, separate company, but they are the ones that specialize in nexus letters, IMOs, DBQs, these letters that are your golden tickets. And if you've looked at a decision letter and you're like, man, what is this nexus letter that you're saying? I had the diagnosis from the VA. That nexus letter is going to be huge and a game changer. So, yeah. Just keep in mind when they roll them out, you got 60 days of that cool off period. So it's not saying wait till day 59 to submit your claims. Please don't be that guy or gal. Let's get to this.
Oh, yeah. So again, they give us the grace period. They give us time to get caught up. They know it wouldn't be fair for us to make the changes today. And there's no way every veteran receiving benefits would know that in one day. But there is a really good question in the chat that I really want to get to. And it looked like it said, can you have a secondary mental health condition? Like, let's say mental health secondary to something, then something secondary to that mental health? Absolutely. You can do a secondary off a secondary all day. Like, not putting a strategy or game plan together for anybody. Everyone's situation is different, but you got one condition and then you link it to mental health, and then you have a mental health condition secondary to that. And then now you have the mental health condition, and maybe it's causing something else now, like maybe sleep apnea, migraine headaches, you name it. Just a bunch of examples out there. You can do secondaries off secondaries all day. So yes, just because it's a secondary doesn't mean you stop there. You can do another secondary off that all day. But that was a really good question.
To add to that, just make sure you have the proper medical evidence.
Yes.
Don't try to do the domino games without the proper dominoes.
Then make sure that secondary, that condition can cause that other condition as well. And there's medical literature, independent medical opinions to back that up. Yeah, some great questions here today. But, with that, at the end of the day, none of this has been proposed, or none of it's been changed formally. Yeah. It's definitely a hot topic of conversation. So stay informed on it. Keep up to date with it. You already have the rating. It's locked in. But again, another kind of like Joey was saying earlier too, like, let's say you already have 50% sleep apnea and you just decide to go for an increase. Well, they were never going to touch it. But if the changes come through and you went for that increase, then they could decrease you back down to 10. So be careful, not careful, be mindful of how you go about your claims, what the VA looks for. There's a lot of different avenues this approaches. And that's where, again, if you're interested here at VA Claims Insider, keep us busy, make us work. This is what we're here for.
Mm-hmm. And then I also see a question in here from Willie Vet. The VA is delaying CMP. I think the CMP exams being downloaded, so it's not showing up on their blue button report. If that's not the right question, I believe that's what you're trying to ask. Reach out to that CMP examiner. One, they could have, just dropped the ball on submitting it to get inserted into your blue button report. You could also reach out to the VA and let them know that, hey, I don't see my CMP exam being reported on my blue button report as well. Those are going to be your huge areas that you want to go. If you want to take a look at that, you could also take a look at your decision letters. If you go, usually it's on page 12 or 13 of your decision letter, where it starts giving you the actual what the actual reason for the decision is. So that's going to give you a big snapshot of what happened in that CMP exam. But yeah, Willie, so hopefully that helps a little bit, where it's just, make those calls, stay in the know of what's going on with your CMP exam, especially if you're looking for it. Reach out to them. They'll be able to assist you with getting those uploaded to the blue button report. And if you don't know what a blue button report is, we've got plenty of blogs, or you can get on a discovery call, and we could also educate you on that process as well.
Yeah, no, that was good. Kimberly has a good question right here. Like, this is a really good example. Thinking of the 900 plus conditions we can get service connected as veterans, how we said some conditions can only be 10%, a handful go to 100, and a lot of them average around 30 and 50. So this one right here. So if you already have a 10% tinnitus claim, you cannot go for an increase on that. So like you're grandfathered in, you're at 10% tinnitus, but even, I'm service connected with tinnitus. I know if I try to go for an increase, nothing would happen. You cannot get any more of an increase off of that. And so that's where, again, like if you have tinnitus, that's just good rule of thumb. Look at your condition before you file it, because can you get an increase? Is the next 10 to 20, 10 to 30, 10 to 50, or does it just stay at 10? So can't go for an increase off tinnitus, but you could do secondaries off of that. Potentially dizziness, vertigo, migraine headaches, mental health. There's a lot of different things. You just want to have your good game plan together. So can't go for an increase on tinnitus. I saw another good question here about insomnia. So insomnia is not a service connectable mental health condition. So you can't file a claim, I have insomnia due to this, or I have insomnia due to my military service. Insomnia is a symptom of a mental health condition. So of those 31s we were hitting on earlier, those 31 symptoms, that chronic sleep impairment, that insomnia. So you wouldn't file directly or secondary for insomnia, but when you're having that evaluation, when you're building your evidence, speak to the insomnia as a symptom of what you're going through, not the diagnosed condition you're filing for. So that's where got to be a little bit more mindful with insomnia. Again, it can be diagnosed as a mental health condition. Just for VA purposes, they do not service connect that. But that's where, again, the education, again, book that discovery call if you're interested, or get with one of the coaches, sign up. And again, that's what we're here for.
Awesome. And then you've got Andrew's over here. He just said that, he's at 90%, trying to get 100%. And then from there, he just paid for an outside evaluation for depression. If they approve it, will that get me to 100%? So that's really going to be dependent on where you were in your overall percentage, because you could have been at 85% and that could round up to 90, or you could be at, 80. It just really depends on where you were specifically, because as you know, VA math is not real math. It's funky math. The way that I like to describe it is it's like having a pie. Right now, you've got 90% of your pie. So say you're at 85%, and I'm just giving you this example just so we can kind of have it as a rough number, because I don't know your claims specifically. Let's put you at 86, so it's a nice even number. If you received a 50%, that would only give you a 50% of that remaining 14%, which would only bring you up to a 93%, which isn't the magic number of 95. Now, if that's just saying that's the one example. If you were at 86, and if you don't know what your overall percentage is, you could also check on vaclaimsinsider.com. We have the VA math calculator. All you have to do is put your conditions in with their current service-connected percentages. Then from there, that's going to give you your overall percentage. Now, if you're not tech savvy, I'm not the most tech savvy person out there. You could also reach out to one of us, reach out on that discovery call, because that could also be something where it's like, hey, maybe you only need a 30%. Maybe you only need 10% to get over it. Maybe you're at that 94 and you just need one extra condition. And if it's mental health, that extra 10%. So understand where you're at in the process, understand your actual disability number or disability rating number, because that can be the difference of you needing more than 70%, which is the average when it comes to mental health. Because if you need 100, but if that evaluation is looking like, hey, they're saying I'm around 30 or 50, those are great ratings. It's just not going to be enough to get you over that hump. So that's about as specific as I can get with that, Andrew, just with not knowing your actual percentage and going over all that. But get on a call with Coach, man. You're in the right spot. You're doing all the right things, and you're asking all the right questions. So love where you're at with that.
Yeah. Ron has a good question right here. How do I tackle the VA thinking they may reduce my mental health condition, my anxiety claim? So that's where, can't go into specifics, but, that's where if you haven't filed anything right now, then again, they shouldn't be trying to come back and they can always reevaluate if they're not already at 100. But if you're trying to go for an increase on that 70%, that's where you want to look at the criteria. A 70% mental health rating, if you try to go for an increase, there is no 80 or 90% right now. It's just you would be going from 70 to 100% saying you're totally occupationally and socially impaired due to that. And that may apply. It's just when you're sitting at 70%, and if you're getting reevaluated or going for an increase, you want to have that medical evidence backing it. Preferably, an independent medical opinion that supports what you're going through as the symptoms apply, or, your own medical evidence from your own psychiatrist or mental health provider. But when you're already at 70%, you want to really make sure you have that medical evidence before you go for that push to 100, because there is no breaks at 80 or 90. So anyone at 70, I always say, have that evidence, feel good about what you have going into that claim. Just because the last thing we want is the VA to take anything away because we go for an increase and we don't have anything backing it up. So hope that helped out there.
And then I see a comment in here from Herman. One, he couldn't get anything for sleep apnea. And then the second comment that you put is, you gave up. This is one of those things, man, where you've come to the right place. You've tried doing it on your own. Maybe you've tried other processes. Maybe you haven't got the proper medical evidence. Talking to someone who can look at your decision letter and specifically say, hey, this is what's needed. Understanding the actual strategy, the education, the medical evidence that's needed to actually get a service connection, specifically sleep apnea. Do you have the proper primary conditions? Because that can be something where it's like, man, like you heard somewhere, I'll just give this as an example, because it used to be something that, what used to be service connected, where I heard a buddy got service connected with sleep apnea secondary to tinnitus. That is not going to work. There's not enough medical evidence. There's just that connection. There's too big of a gap for that, medically speaking. I'm not a doctor. Brandon's not a doctor. We don't try to be doctors at all. But from our perspective and what we've seen, that is no longer going to be a route that you could take. And that's just in that one situation. So if you've been denied with sleep apnea in the past, and you haven't been working with VACI, or you're not on the phone with one of us yet, this is your low go-to step, because maybe there's a lot more that can be done that you just haven't been able to even know that was an opportunity for you yet. But don't give up.
Never.
That's when the VA wins.
Never. And that, that's going to go into the next one I'm looking here. Pamela put one in here. Looks like, just denied for sleep apnea at the HLR level. So I tell people I have a lot of faith in HLRs, especially when, the vets they have the game plan, the medical evidence, and, get that information in front of the higher level reviewer. So, you get that decision letter. Remember this, vets always ask, how far am I going to get back paid? Well, as long as you submit new and relevant evidence, the changes may be coming, but as long as you submit new and relevant evidence within 1 year of that decision and you win that claim, you should get back paid for when that claim was originally submitted. So that's where, again, don't give up. Keep the ball rolling. If you win that claim, get the back pay too. That decision letter, they're like 15 pages, but look at the reason for decision. Look at the bottom. Look at the favorable findings. Maybe they agree you do have sleep apnea. Maybe the claim condition, the primary, is there. Maybe they just said there's no medical nexus established because they didn't provide that. You got to get your own medical nexus. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you need a nexus. Maybe you need a rebuttal letter. That's where, again, if you're interested in re-engaging that and you haven't gotten with VA Claims Insider or reached that discovery call, Pamela, I'd highly recommend, hear someone out, see maybe another approach with that. But yeah, don't give up. That could be a really good claim, and just got to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And like Brian says, when you get denied a claim, you don't start all over again, somewhere in the middle. And again, you might just be 1 or 2 pieces away.
Yep. And then I also see one in here from Bill. What is the rationale for claiming sleep apnea? How can it be caused by military service? Now, if you weren't treated in service for that, just depending on, maybe you had a certain exposure, just depending on when you did serve, this is one of those conditions where understanding that getting it directly connected to military service sometimes is a harder route. Sometimes if you don't have all the right pieces, you weren't treated in service for it, you don't have certain exposures that are under, whether it be the PACT Act, if you're one of our older veterans, that's something where if you weren't treated in service for it, most likely it's going to end up being a secondary. And that's how you would go about getting this service connected, because you want to make sure that you have a proper primary. Do you have conditions that affect the respiratory systems like sinusitis, rhinitis? Those are just one of 2 conditions that could potentially be a primary condition. Of course, you would need a medical opinion to even connect those 2 things. That's just me saying, hey, those are some things that typically are looked at as primary conditions. So understand that, hey, maybe it's not a direct service connection. Maybe you just don't have those right missing pieces or those right pieces to connect that way. But maybe there's another route to go. Maybe it's a secondary to mental health. It just depends. It really comes into, is it going to be a strong claim for you? And that's what you want too, especially when we're at this time frame that they're potentially going to be giving us for the proposed change to the sleep apnea. You don't want to guess. This isn't the time to be guessing when it comes to these 3 claims specifically that we talked about today: mental health, sleep apnea, and tinnitus. Mental health is a good change. That's going to help a lot of veterans. But the other 2 changes, you don't want to spend this time guessing now. But I also see that we're about to get to, 5 minutes to the hour. If we did not get to any of your guys' questions today, 100% you are going to be reached out to. All of your questions are going to be answered. I just know that we're on our timeline, and I want to make sure that we recap the topics that we talked about today. So, Brandon, could you talk about a little bit more about the strategy, education, and medical evidence?
That's where, again, everything Joey just said there, those 3 things right there. The SEAM method, strategy, education, medical evidence. Know your game plan. Know, the strategy, the evidence. What medical evidence and education do you have with it? How does the VA go about it? And that's where, again, book that discovery call if you'd like. VAclaims.help, hop on that. That gets you one-on-one coaching, strategies. It helps. Again, we cannot submit the claim for you. We do not prepare anything. We do not represent you, but we can provide that education so that way you can be as informed as possible with that process. That's where I say I'm with you every step of the way. I can't do it for you, but I'm here to answer any questions you might have. So you're not alone with this. That's where, again, me and Joey are just normal guys. We served in the military too. We know this isn't a fun process at times, but again, stay in the fight. Speak with us if you're interested. I'm always happy to help. But also too, we have the live classes. If you sign up, we have coffee with the coaches. That's a good little kind of like formation in the morning, except we're not freezing, standing outside at 6:04, you name it. Coffee with the coaches. We have mental health education classes, CMP education classes, a lot of different education classes. And again, check out Brian's new book. Brian's always putting out, again, great books, great information. I don't know, I'm sure Joe agrees. He fires us up when we hear about his new information coming out. Give it a look. Check it out on Amazon. It's VA Claim Secrets, now available on Amazon. And it looks like they just dropped the link right there. And again, if you want to learn more, you want that discovery call, speak with one of our team members, again, everyone on the team is great. Speak with them. And again, go to vaclaims.help. Click on that. You'll be good to go from there. But with everybody, love you all. I hope everyone has a great 2025, and it's good to all of us. And please tune in with us again next Wednesday.
Awesome. You guys all get home safe, all right?